Tracy Hackshaw, Government Advisory Committee. I am now I'm a immediate past vice chair. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, and now I'm chair of the Underserved Regions Working Group in the GAC. Well, Trinidad and Tobago is in the Caribbean region, which is in the Latin American Caribbean region in terms of how the regions are grouped in the ICANN world. The situation in Trinidad and Tobago is that ICANN is still a new and evolving concept. The entire concept of the DNS industry is also new and evolving. We are familiar with the telecom sector from the ITU and as well as from the OAS type discussions. But the ICANN world and the entire domain name industry is very new to us. So Trinidad and Tobago's role in this situation is somewhat pioneering in that we are seeking to also work with the other countries in our part of the world, the Caribbean, in making the DNS industry very, become very, how should I put it, ingrained in the business culture. From a government standpoint, we are interested in critical infrastructure issues, which is why we are interested in DNS. In the region, we are prone to certain things like earthquakes, hurricanes, and bringing infrastructure up after those situations. So the DNS is very important to us and trying to understand how that works and how we can help in ensuring its security and stability. The ICANN model is intriguing for countries like Trinidad and Tobago. We're very familiar with the international governmental organizations, the intergovernmental organization, I should say. So OAS, ITU, and similar Commonwealth, similar types of organizations, which are known to us as government-to-government organizations. We do several meetings a year, there are declarations, and we are ratifying agreements and so on. The ICANN model is very different, and it's a private sector organization, and it doesn't seem to fit snugly into any of the categories that we normally would associate ourselves with. There are no annual summits, there are no policy position sessions in terms of government stating what their views are. And I think that the high-level meetings that the GAC recently introduced after the recent ATRT2 review would have created more, I guess, synergy between what governments understand these types of sessions to be, along with what we would do as technocrats in the model. So by having these meetings and having the ability to state your position and to network with other officials of your own level, ministers and permanent secretaries and so on, I think it's becoming more and more understood that this particular scenario is something that could be dealt with by governments. The multi-stakeholder model in particular is one that, governments are used to multilateral, not multi-stakeholder. So I think in my country, because of our history of democracy and long-standing democracy, we are familiar with what is called multi-stakeholderism, and we call it, I guess, democracy. So we do participate with the civil society and academia, technical community, well, in the case where those things matter. So having it formally established in the internet issues is not a problem. And I think that once that understanding is fully branched out through the entire government sector, and we have various ministries dealing with the same issue, telecoms and ICT, I think we're going to see much more multi-stakeholderism within not only Trinidad and Tobago, but also in the Caribbean region in terms of dealing with not just internet issues, but other issues, because we think the issues are, they're related, because the internet, in our case, affects other things, water, crime issues, and developmental issues that we see it as important in that regard. So that's a very difficult question, because in a GAC meeting, decisions that are being made are sometimes delayed because you have to return home to seek clearance or advice from your governments. And often, and that happens in many scenarios, you are looking to see if there's interrelatedness between what's happening here, what may be happening in the ITU or the OAS discussions, and trying to put the pieces together. It takes time to have a decision come forward even from a country, far less from the GAC. And the discussions that happen in a meeting would tend to, I think, stretch longer than you would want it to stretch. And it's really, I think, a challenge for the GAC now with the transition, the speed in which it's moving, to keep up with those decision-making processes. If the GAC is asked to make a decision as a GAC, I think ICANN need to realize as well that the GAC is made up of these entities that themselves need to have decision-making processes built in. And not only that, even if the GAC makes a decision or makes a comment, individual countries can also submit their separate comments and decisions, for want of a better word. So you tend to find there could be synergy, there may be some dissonance. At the end of the day, the transition process allows the GAC to, I think, to see itself as a partner or stakeholder in the process, and probably as even a broker for governments who are interested in the issues. And as you would have seen with India yesterday, perhaps even pivot towards new thinking that would be reasonably evolutionary in those countries' models of moving forward. I would say that first brush up on your acronyms, because you're going to be bowled over by the number of acronyms that are used. But the joking aside, I think the ICANN scenario is one, it's pretty unique. Like other similar organizations, there's very technical work being done, and your technocrats and your specialists will find a home. But at the same time, the technical is also mixed with the policy. And it's unusual in that regard, because you find that as a government representative, you have to wear many hats in discussing the issues at the same time, because they're not only technical issues, they're legal issues, they're policy issues. And the idea is that that individual who is at a meeting needs to broach all the topics and engage fully. So if you're coming to a GAC meeting, prepare well, network in advance. My thinking for the Caribbean in particular is that we need to work together as a region to understand exactly what we may be coming to a meeting to discuss. And when you reach to the meeting, continue to engage fully, not only with the governmental players, but also with the other stakeholders, because that's where you understand fully what's happening in the ICANN world. And unlike other fora, where it's primarily only government officials you're dealing with, it's very unique and very it's building that you can interact directly with the private sector, with the technical community, and with academia in one setting to get a rounded picture of what the DNS looks like.